For today's lesson, our focus standard comes from grade 7, Statistics and Probability, Standard 8B, represent sample spaces for compound events using methods such as organized lists, tables, and tree diagrams. Our topic comes from our probability unit, compound events with lists. Our essential question is, how can we use lists to help us calculate probability of compound events? Take a moment, pausing the video if you need to make sure that the topic and essential question, along with today's date, are in your header, set up your question column and your note column, and resume the video when you're ready to begin. So this is actually our second video on compound events. We had already looked at some examples of compound events and how to use tree diagrams and tables. So there's a few things I want you to remember when we're talking about calculating probability of compound events. First, remember we're trying to make sure that we're being organized to include all possible outcomes. Another way to say that is all of the sample space. Pay careful attention to how the question is phrased. And lastly, and this is good advice all the time, double check your work. So let's go ahead and take a look at our problem today. So we're going to look at a frozen yogurt shop, Isabella's Frozen Yogurt, where there are 3 choices of flavors: chocolate, orange sorbet, or vanilla. They also have a selection of 4 different toppings: sprinkles, chocolate chips, walnuts, or berries. Each customer gets to choose 1 flavor and 1 topping. What is the probability that the next customer will not choose orange sorbet or chocolate chips? We're going to use a list today, but if you were thinking, well, I know I could do this probably with a tree diagram or a table, you're absolutely correct. I just want to make sure that you get to see all 3 methods. And then as you're working with different problems, you'll have 3 different methods you can choose from of what you think will best represent the sample space. So I'm going to scroll down and you won't be able to see the story problem, so make sure that you know that there's 4 flavors: chocolate, orange sorbet, and vanilla. Then, or rather 3 flavors: chocolate, orange, and vanilla, and 4 different toppings: sprinkles, chocolate chips, walnuts, or berries. Also be sure to jot down the question, as that is the important information from the story problem, and then we'll jump into solving it. Alright, so hopefully you've copied down the important information and you noticed and paid careful attention to the wording of the question because it said not orange sorbet or chocolate chips. So we want to know what's left of the possible choices. So we want to start our list by just kind of listing the categories. So we have flavors. I think it's always important to note how many in this category, and there was 3 flavors. And there was 4 toppings. So we'd set our table up like, or rather our list up like this. And as with the last video, there are some shortcuts to knowing, to helping you out with figuring your fraction. And the one for the list is that the number of entries, the number of lines in your entries, once you count those all up, that'll tell you the total possible outcomes. In other words, the total sample space. So let's start with just the first flavor that they offered, which was chocolate, and list out what the different varieties would be. So we could have chocolate with sprinkles. We could have chocolate with chocolate chips, chocolate with walnuts, or chocolate with berries, right? That's the first flavor with each of the 4 different topping combinations. Now we need to do the next flavor. Remember what it was? Orange sorbet. So we want to list out orange sorbet with all the different possible topping combinations it could have. So if you want, go ahead and pause the video and do that. And let's compare. This next section would look something like this: orange sorbet with sprinkles, orange sorbet with chocolate chips, orange sorbet with walnuts, orange sorbet with berries. Have we gotten the entire sample space yet? You said no, I'd agree with you. We still have to talk about vanilla, right? So we have to list those out. So a complete list would look like this. Each of the 3 flavors with each of the different toppings. And now we've represented the entire sample space, so we know the total possible outcomes, and we can put that in our denominator. So what number goes there? Well, we have 4 combinations with chocolate, 4 with sorbet, and 4 with vanilla. So 4 groups of 3 or 3 groups of 4 gives me 12. There's 12 total outcomes. And now it said we want to know the probability of not getting orange sorbet or chocolate chips. So let's take a look. We know we can't have any of these, so I'm going to highlight these, but let's make them red because we don't want those calculated. And we don't want anything with chocolate chips. We can't have this one. What else needs to be highlighted? Yeah, vanilla with chocolate chips. So those are the ones that we're excluding, that we don't want to take into consideration. So now we just need to see what's left. Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I count 6 options left, so 6 would be our numerator. And hopefully you're already saying, well, there's some calculations we can do with that. We can simplify 6/12. And hopefully you see that would be equal to what? 1/2. Or you can put it as a decimal or percent, 50 hundredths or 50%. So that would be the probability of not getting orange sorbet or chocolate chips. And today, for this question, we looked at how to use a list to organize our sample space, make sure we take into consideration all the possible outcomes to find the answer to our probability question. That's going to conclude our video today. Leave room for your summary. Make sure your notes are complete, and come ready to do more problems like this in class.